Okay, so are you ready to put your tinfoil hat on?
More than usual?
More than usual. So I wanted to start out by asking you, have you ever seen a square soap bubble?
Square soap bubble. I don't think so.
Have you ever seen a soap bubble of any shape other than like just perfectly round?
No.
So there was a book in like the 90s or something called K-Pax. They use the phrase, why is a soap bubble round, as sort of like an excuse or a catchphrase for, this is why the way things are, like everything takes a natural form. And I've started thinking about this in terms of people who make online content. And I looked up, before we started talking, I told you to look up a very extreme streamer named Clavicular, who's been in the news this week.
And now to some breaking news out of Fort Lauderdale. This is where a popular influencer and streamer is currently behind bars.
He goes by the name of Clavicular.
He's accused of instigating a fight between two women and then posting a video of it on social media, authorities said.
Yeah, but I don't like when people put too much focus on like getting girls as the reason that they looksmaxx, because chasing tail is really not going to get you anywhere.
And he's become sort of like a example of why the young generation is extreme and stupid, and like why they're failing and why they're morally bankrupt. But I wanted to look at like the top content creators of this year, of the last couple of years, and figure out, why do they all look the same? And I'll kind of read these to you. Why are these all soap bubble examples? We've got the Joe Rogan Experience, which is number one. We've got the Diary of a CEO, which is pretty much the same format. It's somebody with a interesting history of interacting with a lot of people and a lot of connections, sits there and asks hard-hitting, edgy questions of people who have been thrown out of their professional circles. That's what Joe Rogan does effectively. Steven Bartlett, who does Diary of a CEO, does that. The Mel Robbins podcast. Have you seen that one or heard that one?
I have, yeah. And I have strong feelings about that one.
Okay, that's more self-improvement, but why do you have strong feelings about that?
Because it's clickbaity and it's very I've done some research on her, and her book is literally recycling, and all self-help's a little bit of recycling, but hers is really bad. And how she connects with her audience. It's this girl boss yoga blend that makes me nauseous.
Okay, but you said the key words. This is Sesame Street. The word of the day is clickbaity. And there's okay, Mel Robbins, Call Her Daddy. This past week with Theo Vaughn, which is supposed to be comedy. Huberman Lab, which is again science and health, but it's become very clickbaity, selling you supplements, kind of nonsense. Like interviewing people sometimes. Tucker Carlson, Jay Shetty. So like almost all of these follow the same shape, which is somebody with a lot of experience and a professional bona fide sits down, creates very clickbaity titles, interviews somebody, and a lot of times, despite them being from different political spectrums or different backgrounds, or ideally their podcasts are about different things about the human experience, they are still interviewing almost the same cast of people. I've seen a guy who's like, this is an ex-CIA agent. I've seen him on 5 of these podcasts. Literally, yeah. I can go through this list and I know which podcast they've been on. There's another person who talks about how heart health and all these other types of health actually just come down to like your inflammation levels. And like, this person has been, this other person on this list has been drummed out of like, I'm not saying their names on purpose because I don't want to give them a platform and I don't want to promote them. But they have these disgraced scientists on their shows and these people who have like left real world professions and now have these very extreme views, and they go on these podcasts and they almost like Liver King. They show up and they like say their extreme shit and the host reacts to them. And that to me has become the soap bubble of content. Like when we started with why are soap bubbles round? The answer is a soap bubble is the most efficient shape it can take. A soap bubble is usually perfectly spherical. Its surface tension minimizes surface area. So like it is that shape because it is the most efficient shape it can possibly take. And I've started having this tinfoil hat theory that I think that's why podcasts, YouTube channels, Netflix, all these things are taking the same shape, because I think they are the most efficient shape to get people's attention in this moment. So I was going to ask you, are there any shows or podcasts that you have watched in the past or enjoyed in the past where they have become the soap bubble? Like they have.
There is one. Just when you were telling this, popped right in my head. There's a Filipino. He was on ESPN, and he was a journalist, and he was a regular, Yale or Harvard. I think he was a Yale guy, the Ivy League. They have these experts who go into journalisms, and they're sports geeks, but they're Ivy Leaguers, right? And he was just really sharp, and he got kicked off ESPN for what he called differences of opinion, creative differences, right? And so he started a podcast, and he's talking about he's taking sports, which he knows everything about. I mean, he's an absolute expert, and very very extroverted, very outgoing, very gregarious, and he's talking about these players' personal lives, and and about who they're dating, and it's just real smutty. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
It's beneath him. And I think, oh, so this is what you got to do to pay the mortgage.
Right. That's what that's what it feels like. It's these are people who have been kicked out of the profession, and this is what they're doing to pay the mortgage. Like, this is what they have to do. It's
like massage parlors turning into escort services. You know what I mean? Like, oh no, you went to, no, you don't have to do this.
That is the perfect explanation. Yes. This is all of these podcasts used to be masseuses, and now they are giving happy endings because that's what the audience wants. And it is, I'm not going to get on my moral high horse and say disgusting, but it feels like it. It feels like they're pandering. I used to listen to Diary of a CEO. The reason I picked on that, it's still one of the top 10 in the most listened to. They used to be focused on business. Like Steven Bartlett used to do, like, most of his podcasts were, here's how to start your own business, here's how to survive in the financial game, here's how to run a business appropriately. One of his latest guests was a neuroscientist who doesn't have, as far as I know, I don't think they have their business anymore the way they used to. And now they're talking about how stress leaks through your skin and like contributes to belly fat. I mean, like her content literally sounds like a advertisement you would get before a YouTube video starts, or like a spam you'd get in an email. It's that bad. And yet this is the guest, and this is like the content that you're supposed to click on.
Pablo Torre is the person I was talking about.
And did you stop listening to them because they became that shape, because they become the massage parlor of content?
Yeah, I just couldn't believe it. And he was using all of his skills. To go back to what you're talking about, this soapbox or the soap bubble, do you think it's out of desperation? I wonder how you could keep that content wheel moving. How could you milk it for all it's worth? How do you keep that tick of daily outrage, moral?
Okay, so that is getting to the heart of the matter, and this is actually what I want to talk about with Clavicular and this young kid. So now we talk about. Have you ever heard of an audio frequency called a Shepherd's progression? This is a strange caveat, but I swear it'll make sense.
No, I have not.
So I'll play a clip of it when we cut this, but a Shepherd's progression is it's a tone where it sounds like it keeps going up. And it is a tone that it starts and it sounds like the old THX theater test. When you'd go to a theater and they'd be like, we're going to test our audio, and it's kind of to impress you, and it you know, the sound
Yeah,
raises in volume, it gets higher and stronger, and it almost like makes your head explode if it's a good theater, and you're like, yeah, that, you know, it makes your heart rumble. A shepherd's progression does that infinitely, and it's a mental trick. It's a hallucination for your ears. And the way they do it is there are multiple tones raising at the same time, and just as one's about to reach its peak and pop, there's another one raising and is right about the middle, and it starts going near the top, and then behind it is another one coming, and it's about to hit its middle when that one reaches the top. So it never stops. It just always feels like the tone is going up, 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 when in reality, it can't get louder. It physically, unless they turn up the speakers, it can't get louder. That's what the extremism of content is in this day and age. And I'll kind of explain that a little bit too. So back in the old era, let's start with what does the loudest content look like right now? The loudest content looks like what everything is evolved into. It's evolved into Joe Rogan, Diary of a CEO, all this extreme content where people have to, one, be very political. You have to stake a political side so that you can get that outrage click in there. So there has to be moral outrage and moral panic involved in it. It has to involve extreme views. So they have to bring on this revolving cast of guests who have been making the rounds on podcasts lately. There's about 20 people. And they all come on, they wear their tinfoil hat, and they tell you why your stress is leaking through your skin and weird shit like that.
And let's say that Joe Rogan started all this with having just guests and being pretty even about it, maybe being kind of into UFC and steroids and smoking weed and drinking, but these new guys, these new influencers are at a whole new level.
Yeah,
I was trying to the level of confrontation and the will and the things that the kind of dangerous situations they're willing to put themselves in. The way they're talking to women,
yeah,
is frightening. It's 10 levels up, right? If you're going up on the thing on the shepherd's tone you're telling me about, this is a way further down the road.
You're so right, and this is why I wanted to like show you Clavicular and be like, okay, now compare him. Like what's this compared to like a Joe Rogan who's like, they know a bit about, like, oh, this guy's, on gear, or, like, oh, he used to fight in UFC. Now we're looking at like people who are like, they want to pick fights, and the new influencers, they don't just stream for their podcast or for their comedy show like Joe Rogan. They literally stream 24/7. They always have cameras going because it's part of their paid content system. This guy Clavicular, actually, do you mind if we talk a little bit about him, just to sort of like let people in on what's happening in the news today if they haven't heard of him?
Please. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think I told you, watch some clips and tell me what you think. What is your take before I say anything biographical about him?
Well, the nice thing about it, I have never seen him before, and I've never heard of him. I've just been off social media for a while now, and I watched him. Because my first thing about it that popped out to me was how young he was, and how he has this frat boy swagger that I haven't seen in a long time. Now, his diction is so clean, and he talks about it. I'll give you an example of what he does, and it's cringeworthy. It's hard for me to watch. He's on a show, and he's absolutely insulting towards women. And so there'll be 10 women up, and he'll tell them what's wrong with them, but he will rattle off these medical terms about how their face is laid out, their nose, how this, and he does it so clean and so quickly. And usually people with high intelligence, and I know he has a high IQ, I can tell, they kind of have that stumble stutter. You know what I'm talking about, Joe? It's that Malcolm Gladwell where their mouth can't keep up with their brain.
Right.
But how does he talk like that so fast and so, I guess it's just so sharp.
It's so silly that people want to talk about bone smash. I think it's just because it's like you hear it and it's so crazy. If you ask me seriously, I mean, what's the best way to look max? I would tell you about leanness. I wouldn't tell you about bone smashing. Yeah,
preparation, I think, and I think that a lot of what he says
right?
is
that's not off the cuff. It can't be. It's got to be very, very premeditated or practiced or staged, I guess we'd say.
if you're wondering like what his education level is, he went to Seton Hall Preparatory School and Sacred Heart University, where he was expelled. So like he came from an educated background, and I think he pre-prepares a lot of what he says.
He is just a jerk. You'd be embarrassed if he was your son. Wouldn't want him, insulting your daughter. I don't know, how do you explain the kid?
If you ever want to know who will look like the harbinger of the end times for the older generations currently, this kid is like, if you look up videos of him, you're like, oh, that generation is completely doomed. Like if he came out of that, everybody's doomed. There was yes, he looks very dead-eyed. Like a lot of the videos and stuff of him, it looks like he's posing, and he has sort of the dead-eyed sociopathic look. He speaks sharply and quickly, and he specifically is like confrontational. Like his style is confrontational.
He's an epitome of a pretty boy. His features, he's got lip gloss on. He wears makeup. He wears special. I mean, he's very, very. His vanity is vanity a sin still, or is that not a sin anymore?
It is. It's always a sin. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you catch on what his name means? Like why he picked it?
No, I didn't see that.
Okay. I'm gonna have to introduce some language here. His original name is Braden Peters, so he's a Braden. But he went by the name Clavicular, as in the clavicle, and it's because he says that he read in ancient manuscripts or whatever that the length of your clavicle, so from the middle of your neck out to the width of your shoulder, is one of the big measures for attractiveness. And his whole shtick, like the whole his whole personality and his online his bubble, his soap bubble, is he keeps people clicking on his content because all he cares about is looks. Like not just vanity. He calls it looksmaxxing, as in like maximizing your looks. So one word, looksmaxxing. And the idea is that the only thing that matters evolutionarily, financially, the only thing in life that matters is how you look. It's not just vanity. He says it's survival. It is proof that you're a good breeding stock. It is proof that you are worthy of like existing in this world, that it's what makes you the money. And there's all these crazy clips of him doing stuff to increase his looks.
And okay, touch on that, but I do want to talk about when he talks about looks, how he speaks to women. So he'll have 5 of his cronies. He'll be on a show with other influencers who are these same kind of, what do you call these shows, these guys nowadays?
Manospheres, bros,
Yes.
chads. Yeah.
The manosphere bros. He'll go on these shows with them and find women who are there for them. So he will tell them what's wrong with them in a very demeaning way and call 24-year-olds old. And it's not in a funny mock. It's a very demeaning. And then, of course, his bros are
serial
with him,
killer
laughing
serious
over his shoulders. Just, yeah, bro. It's really disgusting. I mean, it's very ugly, right?
Yeah.
And these women have to sit there and take it for their,
I think the way this makes me feel is when I was watching this content. I got into a discussion with a couple of friends of mine. This episode was born of, we were talking about the ugliness of the spirit that is most online content. That a lot of people, it doesn't matter which podcast you're into, what personality you follow, whatever. Even if you follow something that used to be wholesome and fun or make you feel good to listen to it, or it was educational, it used to educate you and make you feel like you learned something. So much online content has an ugliness of spirit to it now that is embodied by this. And this is the most egregious example we can come up with. And also because Clavicular is huge news this week. Like SNL just did a skit about him making fun of looksmaxxing and his whole movement. But honestly, it
legitimizes him more, doesn't it?
It legitimizes him, and it was also like a very shallow take. They made fun of him being awkward around women and what he did to get his looks, and it's like, but they didn't say anything of substance about this. And so I wanted to stop and take a moment to say something of substance about this is what he has to do. And that's going to be controversial to say. When I tell you that this is what this kid has to do to get the clicks and attention that will sustain him.
Well,
yeah, go ahead.
Let's talk about, did you do any research on the science of what he's saying? Are these real medical terms that he's saying? Because he sounds like a plastic surgeon, and he's doing things like breaking his jaw to move it and getting nose jobs and doing things a fraction of a centimeter or whatever, however they measure that kind of stuff. Is he legit on that stuff? Has he studied this?
There are some things that he treads into that are pseudoscience nonsense, but to be honest, some of his claims are real. He's said on podcast he takes crystal meth to stay lean. Turns out that is an exaggeration. He takes medical grade
Adderall or something.
Yeah, Adderall. Like he takes stimulants to increase his metabolism. It's not crystal meth. He's being clickbaity. But he has taken steroids. He has done things called, like, he called it bone smashing. Like he said he took a hammer to his own cheekbones to make them denser. What he was actually doing is he had looked into how people can microfracture parts of their bone anatomy and it'll build back a little bit stronger. That's basically how kickboxers make their shins stronger is by kicking, bags and things. Like, it does work in very small amounts over a very long period of time.
And there is plastic surgeons that do change your face. That is a real thing,
Absolutely.
They break your nose for a nose job and your cheeks, and they do that stuff. So I think he studied that stuff.
Yeah, he has done. He has had surgeries. He has had alterations. He's done things to himself to make himself taller. I think the example I was telling my wife about is it reminded me of the movie Gattaca, where like this guy is like, I had to get my shins dislocated and then expanded with these like metal expanders to make myself taller. I think Clavicular has done that or said he was going to do it. I don't remember which. But effectively, like him having to he calls it ascending. He tells his fans he's going to ascend, which sounds very religious in terms. But he talks about how, this is what it takes to be the best human, be the alpha or the Chad in the room,
and be better than women who will worship you. I get that vibe.
Yes, exactly.
Like you'll become so attractive, and you can talk down, and it's like it's a psychopath. I'm better than you,
Yes, and to give you an idea of like, well, how deep does this run? Like, it can't possibly be more, worthwhile than like morals or reasoning to this kid. And it's like, no, he believes in looks so hard, or claims to, that he thinks it trumps, your beliefs, your morals, your politics. Like, one of the things that he's been known for is he'll take sort of right-wing positions, and he'll take interviews with right-wing commentators. And in an interview, somebody asked him, like, hey, do you support JD Vance? Because he's he's probably going to be, the next president if the Republican Party continues winning. And he called JD Vance subhuman and called him trash, and said that it's because his looks are bad. And said that the reason why Gavin Newsom from California would win is because he called Gavin Newsom a Chad who would mog him to death. Mog meaning browbeat him or loom over him. And none of that was based on politics, belief, or morals. That was his judgment based entirely on their looks and the sort of aura they give off. So, like, he believes that you should win if you look good enough in all circumstances. And again, let me remind you, he is age 20, I think, right now. I think he's going to turn 21 this year. So, yeah, this is the shape. And to get back to our metaphor, this is the shape of the soap bubble. This is what it takes to make a livable amount of money, or a decent amount of money in podcasting, broadcasting, interviews, whatever. And also in entertainment, this is the shepherd's progression. We think Joe Rogan is loud right now, and we think that Steven Bartlett and these other shows are loud right now. This is the tone coming up behind them. This is how the progression goes.
I think it's important to touch on, Joe, how someone say, oh, this is just a crazy person who's just doing this for attention. I think what's scary about this is how popular he is.
Yeah.
His following he's second in the world. More people are watching him than are watching CNN and Fox News.
Yeah.
Isn't that concerning? Like, oh no, like, and a lot of younger people who can be influenced by, or admire this or giving their time to this.
Yeah, it's I've gotten asked before. I think when we did our Liver King episode, somebody asked me afterward, how many people are actually watching these crazy people, and I said way more than you'd think. That like the classic sort of the channels and the television shows and the broadcasting networks that we all sort of we know about in the background. They kind of represent the bedrock of media. Those are pretty unpopular. Like Fox News only gets like 10,000 hits per video, or they go up to 100,000, but like they really don't set the trends. What they do is they are the background wall. Like they do the work, they do the journalism. News organizations do this kind of like bedrock work, and then everybody stands on top of it, and you get the actual extreme, like the most extreme people doing placing their flag, putting the pole on that bedrock. So there are way more people watching Clavicular than there are watching Fox and Friends or MSNBC or even like CNN. There's more people watching these young people make extreme content than there are people who are reacting to nuance. And that is actually my point, is when I started wanting to talk about this episode and write this, it kind of came out of a conversation again I was having with a couple of my friends, where it was like, we realized that we don't have a lot of good examples or ways to talk about this. Like, we lack the language to say, this is the shape this is the only shape that survives in media right now. And it's the one that makes the most money. It's the one that we're going to keep getting, because we don't know how to not reward it. We have a YouTube engagement algorithm. It's an algorithm that is turned into a radicalization engine. That is probably the best way to put it. YouTube's algorithm, Twitter's algorithm, the way it works is they are radicalization engines. And when I say the word radicalization, most people think I mean like terrorism or something. I mean that, whatever political side you're on, whatever, even if you have no political side, if the thing you were into is just looking as beautiful as possible, like looksmaxxing, you will become the most radical extreme of it possible if you want to make money doing it. Anything less than the most extreme will not make money and will not support your opinions or views. Todd, the reason, I'm sorry to say this, the reason why we don't have the number one podcast in the world, it's because we are not extreme enough by far. We listen to nuance. We try to disseminate information. We look at multiple sides. We try to find where the truth is. That is a terrible way to make money and a terrible way to be popular. It will never happen.
Well, we did an episode. I said we did it together, where we said you have to pick a side, right? And the more extreme you get, the better, right? Now I'm trying to figure out how I do this. My own things about documentaries, because I love watching murder documentaries. I love them, but I'm getting to the point now where it has to be pretty interesting. It has to be people of us. You can't be a husband killed his wife for insurance money. That's just, who cares? Right. It has to be, there was a love triangle, and then she escaped from the county jail. It has to get more and more. And I think back to these shows that were older. And I don't know if do you remember the show Cheaters or To Catch a Predator?
Yes.
Those were
both those.
Yeah. And Cheaters was one where you had to go find infidelities, and they would hire private investigators, and then they would go confront them. And it was great. And there was punches thrown. It's the Jerry Springer stuff, right? It just got dirtier and dirtier and dirtier. Yeah. And I'm like, is this just that repeating itself? And is this going to run its course? And we're going to go back to being human beings again and being nice to women.
Well, that is a prime example. Even just talking about Jerry Springer, like, Jerry Springer isn't on the air. It got boring. Like it's as extreme as Jerry Springer was, it got lewd and stupid, and again, it kind of had no depth of the soul, and it made you feel bad for watching. but it got boring.
It had that arc, though. At first, it would just have kind of topics, and then it would be who's pregnant, and then it got to be where they had to have a fight every single show. Remember? It went to where it was just a WWF because they couldn't get people to watch. So instead of having a fight every 6 months, they had one every 6 minutes. You know, it just got. And then finally, you said, "Okay, come on, this is just silly." You know.
Yeah.
Does that give us hope that this is going to adjust itself?
Well, okay, possibly. And the reason I say possibly is, have you ever heard of something called the Overton window?
No.
The Overton window is a range of policies that people can have that are acceptable in the mainstream area, where like it's a window of, if I'm in this window, it won't risk my career to say it. It used to be that if a politician in the era of like John F. Kennedy, if you were a politician running for a public office and you got caught kissing somebody who wasn't your wife, your career was totally over.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember who's that politician who did a weird, awkward scream during one of his rallies and it ruined his career? Who was that?
I don't remember. I was thinking about Bob Dole said something once. He just made one comment and that was it. Like, I'm trying to think.
The Dean scream. It was Howard Dean. Okay. Yeah. Howard Dean was running in 2004 and did this weird scream that was so awkward, like at Iowa. And it ruined his run for president. Just an awkward scream. Our Overton window has gotten so shifted. We can do almost anything politically and it won't end your career. Like you can, what I'm saying is, we used to have not standards, but like there was much less slack for doing or saying something extreme before we're just like, oh, you're a joke. You're not a person anymore. You are a joke. You got, you were clay and you got punched into a weird shape by being in the public eye for too long. And now we can't trust you. That window has shifted so much that we can have a clavicular who has literally been molded by public opinion, whose physical form has changed like some kind of Greek tragedy, because they have had too much time in front of other people, in front of streaming and in front of the public, that they have like contorted their body, and we still will listen to them. Our Overton window has shifted so much to where like we will allow that. So when you ask me if this will come back down and we will come back to reason, my answer is going to be yes and no. Oh, go ahead.
There's a lot to unpack here. So where does this go? Okay, I'm going back at history. I keep doing that because I'm trying to learn from this. Where does freedom of speech come? This also reminds me of when the rap obscenities, or even with rock music, where they said, we're going to put warning labels on things. And so music got racier and racier, but the hip hop music was the worst one, where they just got so vulgar, like Two Live Crew, and they had these bands that came out that were literally just talking about gross sexual acts to sell, Yeah, and we got tired of that too, right? But it got worse and worse and worse,
Okay, I'm here for this. Let's do this. If this were an episode of John Oliver, this is the moment where we say, where do we go from here? Where could we possibly go from here?
Right. Do you just go out and start killing people? I mean, you're spitting in people's faces now. You're bringing around 17 goon guys who are on steroids with tattoos, confronting people in nightclubs. I mean, do you just start beating people with baseball bats? What's the next step?
Yeah, if Clavicular becomes Joe Rogan somehow, what comes behind Clavicular? Like, is it going to be a literal Black Mirror episode where somebody is just like, now watch me kill this hobo while I wear latex gloves? Like, how more extreme can we get before we're not even humans anymore? So let's go back in time a little bit. Like some of the first versions of like, this is extreme, this is cheap, and also this is popular and people are paying for it, are things like the rag sheets in the early 1800s, 1900s, which a rag sheet was just like a news tabloid, but it was a single piece of paper that was purchased for about a penny, and you had to go into a bar to buy it, because if you went to a bar, it meant you were an adult, and you could pay to read people's dirty gossip. And you'd buy a rag sheet, and you look at it, and it's a single newspaper page, and it would just be like, here's who this nobility person is cheating on with this other person. Oh, this person was spotted wearing like, you know, a dress that like they got from last season, which means they're probably cheating on their husband because like, you know, they're not buying, you know, like it was nonsense. Those became yellow journalism eventually. Like it went from rag sheets to newspapers that were just gossip rags to, you know, yellow journalism became sort of like publishing to, you know, it was about war. It was hot political topics, but it was like also very editorialized. People would be like, instead of just repeating the news for fact, they would try to give you an opinion too, kind of like what most podcasts do nowadays anyway, which is here's a little bit of fact, but here's, you know, for every 1 minute of facts about the political state of things today, here's 30 minutes of my opinion on it. Then we get to, you know, demonic panics in the 1950s. So it goes from like rags and penny dreadful novels to yellow journalism to, you know, comic books and people being like, oh, there's demonic messages in comic books and in Dungeons and Dragons books. And then you hit it. It's rap. And then you get to, you know, oh, this music is going to corrupt our minds. TV is going to corrupt our minds. R-rated, you know, features are going to corrupt our minds. Talk radio and radicalization like Rush Limbaugh and all these things are going to corrupt our minds. And we keep, again, this is the shepherd's progression. It's this noise starts, it gets very loud about this one subject. And then that subject bursts. It bursts like a bubble because we don't care anymore. It's, oh my God, Jerry Springer is going to corrupt our minds. It gets loud. And then the bubble bursts because nobody cares anymore. It gets boring and we walk away from it. This is the state of the internet too. It's Clavicular is loud right now. He's popular. He's having a moment, but it's going to stay loud for a bit and then it will burst because nobody can keep up with that kind of audience saturation. Nobody can keep up with that kind of constant streaming. And the audience will just get bored of him at some point, like they did with Liver King, and they'll just that'll burst. People will walk away from that. It'll drop back down, and somebody else loud will come up behind them and continue the progression. I think what we're feeling though, as an audience, and the fatigue of this, it's not that things have gotten more extreme so much. I think what we're actually feeling is there's no volume knob anymore. All that other stuff I mentioned, you brought up the rap first. What's it take to make a rap album?
Can we go back though? You got my mind just going back with that rag thing.
Yeah.
You know, this is great. From the 1800s, another man in regimals seen around the town was the Duke of W with Mrs. A. It seems the Duchess of W hasn't been able to secure the lasting affections of her husband.
Are you reading that from a rag?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I mean, this is great. Get some drunk stumbling out of there. Yeah. So no. Anyways, I had to. This stuff is worth reading, and it's only this is similar to YouTube videos. How they're getting smaller and smaller. It's one page. It gives you one sentence about smut, and it moves on. It doesn't go. It does not a 25 minute. You don't have to read a book about it, a whole biography. You know, it's nice and simple.
Oh, the good old days of smut. Yeah.
Anyway, sorry. I'm sorry.
Well, at least with a rag, somebody had to pay to publish it. It took money. Like you had to show up to a publisher with like, you know, a small pile of, what do they use? Pounds in Britain. You had to pay over silver, and then they would take that silver, pay for ink, and then they'd put it through the press, and they'd use, you know, lower and upper cases, like they'd align them on a case set, and then they'd press it and make a physical paper out of it, and then they'd have to distribute that, which means paying the people at the bar to you know, let them publish your rag there. Rap albums used to take people going into an actual studio, paying a studio, recording
a year to come out, right?
Yeah, it was all of these. There were gatekeepers. All of these things that you know, they used to be, you know, it'd make us clutch our pearls, and it would be like, oh no, they're offending our morals, and they're you know, they're pushing what the Overton window will allow, which is they're pushing what we will, as society, allow them to say without fully canceling them. But the volume knob has been broken off because there is no gatekeeper. I can go onto YouTube and say very extreme shit just for fun. Like I don't Nobody's stopping me. The only thing I need is a $40 microphone and a $10 webcam and a laptop, and I can say stuff that would just curl your hairs, and the cost is extraordinarily low. So what we're seeing now is that, the shepherd's progression has never not been there. It's always been there. But what we're experiencing now is somebody has turned up the volume in the theater to maximum while the shepherd's progression is going, and then broken the knob off. There is no friction for people to make content anymore. So we're just basically experiencing what is it like when everybody tries to compete with their content all at once to be as extreme as possible. And the shape of that is the soap bubble. It is everybody ends up looking like a Diary of a CEO. Everybody ends up looking like Joe Rogan. Everybody ends up looking like the most extreme version of their own content possible, because that's what'll make money. And I promise you, if we let Clavicular keep, broadcasting and keep being on the air, and if he keeps his career going for another 10 years, he'll look like Joe Rogan. Clavicular will be sitting there talking to somebody who used to be a neuroscientist, telling them that stress leaks through their skin and that, it gives them belly fat. I promise you, in 10 years, if Clavicular is still making content, he'll be doing these dumb interviews with people who are just sort of like making the rounds, publishing, nonsense. And he'll have to ask them stupid questions about their career, and it'll look exactly the same as all these other content creators. So I guess there is no extraordinarily satisfying answer. I wish I could end this episode and say, don't worry, it'll all go away very soon. I think the more accurate thing to say is, don't worry, we'll adjust soon. I think we'll just get fatigued from it.
I was hoping that a friend of mine said that quote, and I was talking about social media, and he said, I hope that we wake up from day this was just all a bad dream. It is declining. Social media is declining.
Yeah.
But what's next, right? What's the next? People aren't going to stop doing content.
No. What'll happen is, I guess the best question is, when was the last time you watched daytime TV? Like turned on the TV and watched local broadcast?
It's been 6 years.
It's been a while.
There has to be something, you know what I mean? Yeah, it's just not. It's just too slow. You have to wait to get to what you care about, the weather or the local. You know what I mean?
When I grew up, I didn't think there would be a world without the Channel 8, Channel 10, and Channel 12. Those were the hits. I did not think there would be a world where I did not watch Simpsons on Channel 12, the news on Channel 10, and Channel 8, and that there wouldn't be some sort of daytime TV in the middle of the day on Channel 8. I was convinced that was going to be my life forever.
Yeah.
And that moved on to cable. That moved on to TiVo, if that existed for anybody else. I think I might have been the only one that did that. It became YouTube. It's people now have so many choices about their platforms, their audio, their entertainment. They don't even have to listen to anything on YouTube anymore. They can just go straight to an audiobook, or they can go straight to their favorite podcast. Like we're making, better and better bubbles for ourselves. It's having the echo chamber effect where it's making us more politically extreme, but it's also allowing us to choose entire forms of media that we no longer have to listen to or look at anymore. Clavicular is scaring people right now, but how long until people aren't even on YouTube because they have too many ads and they have too much extreme shit that they don't care about anymore? When how long until everybody's just on their favorite stream platform, or like they're only on TikTok or whatever hybrid between YouTube and TikTok exists in 5 years?
Let me ask you this to close out the show, Joe. How mean are you willing to be rich?
That is probably the question of the day. And honestly, that's the one we should have asked each other 5 years ago when we started a podcast. We should have asked, how mean, how cruel, how much of our spirit are we willing to get rid of? How much of our soul are we willing to darken to be rich? And I think for me, unfortunately, the answer is seeking truth is fun for me. And so I can't become a clavicular or a Joe Rogan, unfortunately. I mean,
Well,
like, really, it would benefit us both if we were better
Well,
streamers.
what would be the occupational hazard of being that kind of person to your wife, to your future family, to your in-laws, and to your career?
And
is it worth it for that 5 seconds of fame and $500,000?
I know we both have gray hair, but I think our hair would go white and fall out within a year. Like, I think the amount of stress that comes with that, and the amount of like sounding and being that emotionally extreme all the time, it would hurt. Like, I think it would physically hurt to do that.
No, you're absolutely right. So Jake Paul, one of the Paul brothers, he went up to Gronk, who is a football player, Rob Gronkowski, who has 5 brothers, and he's steroided out of his mind, and he's confronting this big NFL football player. And he's saying, I'm going to beat you up, and I'm going to kill your brothers and eat your brothers. And you just think, to do that 3 times a day for 3 years,
Yeah.
to be vile and to get yourself in the situation. Some of it's staged, but some of it isn't. That would just get exhausting. It's got to be bad for you. Right?
Yeah. To borrow a term from the younger generation right behind me, it's cringe, and I choose not to live that cringe lifestyle.
You've been listening to The Re-Engineered You. Thank you so much for listening to the show. You mean the world to us.
You can connect with us at www.re-engineeredyou.com. That's where we have show notes, links, and articles for each of our episodes.
We're not experts in anything, but we've got opinion on everything.